The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the guest's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of AIHA. AIHA does not endorse any guest or the entity that they represent. On this episode of the Healthier Workplaces Show, the topic is mentoring at AIHA when we are joined by guest Melissa Rupert. Coming up next.
I am Sabina Colligan,
Denise Deeds,
Chandra Deeds Juello,
and I am
IH.
So in the Air Force, I was put into industrial hygiene, and once I got into it, I actually loved the fact that I was there to help people. When people understand why they're doing what they're doing, they're more likely to do it. My favorite part about what I do is I don't know what's gonna happen that day. You'll get a phone call and you're like, what in the world is this? It's problem solving, critical thinking, all at the same time. We are here protecting our employees. They come to work happy, healthy, and when they leave, they're just as happy and healthy as when they came. That's really why we do what we do.
I grew up in a family, both my parents are industrial hygienists, so for me, industrial hygiene is just a part of my life.
These are cool gloves because they're polyvinyl alcohol, and so they dissolve in water. One of the things that was really different for my kids growing up was the opportunity to join us on projects, especially during the summer when we had asbestos abatement in schools.
Asbestos abatement definitely was a unique experience as a child. Industrial hygiene is just sort of part of who I was. I am really proud to be an industrial hygienist because I really believe in what we do.
I get the opportunity to sit back and be really proud of my daughter. It is very rewarding to feel that you've made a difference.
I'd like to welcome Melissa Rupert to the program. We're here to talk about the AIHA Mentorship Committee, right? And it's like, so I guess, I mean, the first question obviously is what motivated you to get involved with mentoring, on the behalf of AIHA? How did you get started in this?
Yeah, that's a that's a great question. So I can say with certainty that the biggest leaps that I've made in my personal and professional life and in my career have been the result of formal and informal mentoring. I've had some really wonderful mentors in my life, and honestly, I would not be even close to being the person I am or the leader I am today without those people, having contributed to my development. And so I think if you look around at most of the successful people within AIHA and beyond, a common thread amongst them is really the influence of mentorship that they've had along the way. And so most of us, I think, have heard that phrase "lift as you climb," and so really that speaks to me. It's one of the things that I live by. It's just so important to help elevate others while you're also trying to elevate yourself.
You've really were there at the onset and you took on leadership roles, right? And so let's talk a little bit about,
Yeah.
how that transpired and, your pathway through this.
Yeah, for sure. It's a cool story. So back in, uh, forgive me, the years may not be exact, but I'm gonna ballpark it. So I
That's
think
fine.
back in like 2008, I was an early career professional. I had been out of grad school for a couple of years and had just attended the Future Leaders Institute, which I think was a game changer for me. It really changed my perspective on what could be when it comes to leadership. And so that inspired me, that participation in FLI really inspired me to want to be a better leader. And I, after that, was looking for a way to get involved in a more meaningful and purposeful way with AIHA. And so, at the time I was a member of a few committees. I hadn't really volunteered to lead anything within those committees. And so I was really just looking for a way to be a more purposeful leader. And so I was sitting in a meeting of the Students and Early Career Professionals Committee, and Carter Ficklin, whom a lot of the AIHA community knows Carter, had been doing some one-on-one coaching with a few students. And in that meeting, I remember him saying, look, I just don't have the capacity to do this anymore, because obviously he was moving on to other things, other leadership aspects. And so he said, I don't really have the capacity to do this anymore. Is there anybody that would be willing to take on these students and coach them? And so he was looking for somebody to step up and just take over his role in that. And so again, after having been through FLI, and I'm sitting in this committee, and I'm like, man, this is my shot, right? This is my opportunity to do something. I raised my hand to do something, to volunteer to do something. And so at the time, I didn't really even understand what I was getting myself into. I didn't really understand where that road would lead or where it could lead, but I was really just hungry to grow myself personally and professionally, and to find a way to get involved. Once I began looking at the coaching of those few individuals, I recognized that there was a much larger opportunity here for students and early career professionals, and even beyond that. Mid-career professionals also need mentorship. And so I knew that ASSP had a formal mentoring program, but there was nothing like that existed within AIHA. And so I thought maybe we could take this coaching of these few individuals and turn it into something bigger and implement a more formal mentoring program. So at the end of that first year, I coached those, I think it was 3 or 4 individuals who were just doing one-on-one coaching at the time. And I enlisted the help of 2 other really go-getter, amazing professionals that were coming up kind of with me and alongside me. And that was Chrissy Hain and Nicole Greason. And the 3 of us sort of set out on this path to grow that program into something more substantial. So by the time I wrapped up my involvement with the mentoring program in 2017, it had grown from a project team on the SECP to its own committee. And it was supporting, I don't know how many, it was over 100 mentor-mentee relationships at the time. And so, it still ranks as one of the best parts of my journey as a professional. Like, it really was the thing, I think, the standout moment that sort of helped me realize what it could be to be a leader.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a huge thing too. Like you mentioned that, just a few minutes back on part of your growth is, is reaching back to help others, who are on that path, maybe, at an earlier stage of the path. And I think, I see that a lot with professionals in AIHA tend to be more open to that. In some industries, I guess I work in entertainment and work in other stuff too, and not so much. There's not so much people trying to help people up behind them. They view them more as competitors, and I think that's huge. Can you think of any like particular success stories or some impactful experience you had as a mentor, that, as your time, with the committee that, helped that mentee's personal growth, but probably at the same time helped your growth, right? I mean,
Yeah,
any,
right.
give us a great example.
I mean, it's my own success story. I mean, that's kind of where we're headed in here. But, I think it's really hard to recall specific examples, just because there were so many really wonderful moments within, my time as a mentor, and, my time as a leader within the mentoring committee. I think probably those early days of the program were probably the ones that stand out the most for me, just because they were so impactful in my own life. And so I think one of the first mentor-mentee relationships was that I had was with a young woman by the name of Brandy Kissel. And she and I are still really great friends to this day. And I recognized the drive in her that I had in myself. I could just see that she really wanted to get involved. She really wanted to, stand out as a professional. She really wanted to take on leadership opportunities. And while, I'm only a few years in front of her professionally, so it's not like I'm even that senior to her. She and I have built this relationship over the years that has been, I think, for me, probably one of the highlights to come out of that program. I recall that when I first met her, she was unsure of how she wanted to get involved, but she definitely knew she wanted to. And now she's heavily involved with AIHA. At the time, she was heavily involved with the Students and Early Career Professionals Committee. She helped me, get the mentoring committee started after, one or a couple of years after we got it going. She stepped into leadership for that program as well. And so just really watching her grow from a young professional into the confident, person that she is today has been a lot of fun to watch. I don't know. I like to think that maybe those early years of her career I had a little bit to do with, but honestly, she did that all herself. She just needed somebody there to believe. We all need somebody to believe in us and just help us, just point us in the right direction, because we're all capable of getting there on our own. We just sometimes, just need that confidence booster.
That's stated like a really good coach, though. The way you just stated that, it's like you don't take credit for their success. You're, and I think coaching and mentoring, there's a lot of similarities there, and it's definitely giving back. But you're also, I think, I gotta believe that it's as equal a thing for you, right?
Yeah,
As far as that's part of your growth path, right? Is it not?
absolutely. I mean, it'd be silly not to discuss my own success as part of this program.
Sure.
My involvement, because of my involvement with AIHA, because I gained so much from the mentoring experience, as a mentor, I got probably as much out of it as she did, and as my other mentees have. And because I pursued those leadership opportunities within AIHA, and they provided those opportunities for me. If I hadn't found that pathway, I'm not sure, where I would be right now, right? Like, I would be doing fine, I'm sure, but would it look like it does now? Probably not. And so I think, I'm going to take credit for my own success story here.
No, that's fair. I
Yeah.
think and that's one of, probably should be one of the incentives for people to get involved in mentoring, right? For that very, it's because it's, you're giving back, certainly, and I think that's super important, but you're also building, helping build yourself to another tier, because
Yeah.
being somebody's model, being somebody's, you know, uh, sage advisor, is huge, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Uh, it's, it's definitely, it builds both ways. It
mhm.
builds both ways.
And I'll say that, if like, I have never been directly involved in a mentoring program, but I've been involved in training and coaching, both in youth sports and even on the professional level. And yeah, there's so much, like, yeah, you really, when you're in that position of trying to teach and guide somebody, it's like you learn more. It actually solidifies your knowledge base, does it not? Because it
Yeah, it definitely does.
makes you question when somebody asks you a question about something specific. It's like you have to roll back and go, yeah, okay, I have to know this.
Yeah, it definitely does. It keeps you on your toes. You have to, figure out how you're gonna be a better communicator, and how you're gonna, answer the questions. And sometimes you don't know the answers to, and there's just as much learning in that aspect of it. You're like, hey, I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Let's figure it out together.
So, how is your role on the AIHA mentorship committee? What ways, specifically, has your professional development been part of that? We covered that a little, but I
Yeah,
think that's an important aspect of it, is it not?
absolutely. We did talk about it very briefly there for a minute, but I think, and I said this before, I think that the relationship was just as important and beneficial to my own development as it was to that of my mentees. Maybe more so, to be honest. Those relationships, you set out to hopefully provide some lessons learned for your mentee and maybe some insightful information, but the act of mentoring, I think, really teaches you so many things. It can be a valuable tool for something as basic as how to plan and run a meeting. I mean, that's simple, like at the foundational level, but also how to, at a much bigger level, how to develop and lead others. And it was and is, it continues to be a hugely rewarding experience to be able to give back in some tangible way. It's corny, but it's like it's a literal way to watch the future of our profession unfold in front of you. I think, again, that's pretty cheesy, but I think it's true.
That's not, though. It's not. That's not corny at all. I mean, that's accurate, right? Is it not? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. I will say that in my mentor-mentee relationships, I've learned a lot of things from my mentees. For example, it's exposed me to other ways of thinking. You
Right.
know, the way they think about things is not the way that I think about things. The way they process information is not the way I process information. And so when you're trying to grow yourself as a leader and you're going to be leading different individuals, maybe many individuals, they don't all behave the same way. And so just getting that practice in understanding people better is
Mhm.
really an important piece of this. Um, it also helped me to develop, I think, what are super important leadership skills, which are patience and accountability. So those things for sure, don't always necessarily come naturally. They're not necessarily inherent in what we do. Like we have to sometimes learn how to be patient, and we do have to learn how to hold ourselves and others accountable. And so the mentor-mentee relationship is good for all of those things. And then on
Yeah,
a
it makes
technical
sense.
level, yeah, beyond the soft skills, beside the soft part of it, there's the technical piece of it, which um, I think there was times where I was having conversations with my mentees that really challenged me from a technical standpoint, that
Mhm.
because I wasn't having those same conversations or wasn't seeing the same issues in my own
Mhm.
day-to-day life. And so there were like pieces of industrial hygiene that I didn't have exposure to in my, professional, like in my business life,
Mhm.
that I was seeing my mentees struggle with in their business lives. And so it forced me to think about those things too and start, building those technical pieces in the pathway of trying to help them. I was also kind of trying to help myself be able to explain it in a little bit better way. So lots of things coming out of that mentor-mentee relationship that were hugely valuable.
That's huge, and having that ability to see it through the eyes of somebody else's perspective,
Yeah.
and most importantly, probably right, is being open to that, because I could see some people would maybe feel like, I'm not gonna say threatened, maybe challenged, having somebody have a totally different perspective. They're younger, they're coming up from from a different a different time, right, in their career. And the world's changing, technology's changing, everything's, so the way we did things 20 years ago, some of that may need to be modified, right? So it's, in a way, there's probably a bilateral growth thing going on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's great. Well, do you have any particular advice for new mentors and mentees that are getting involved in the AIHA mentorship program? From again, from you came up all the way through the ranks of this entire committee. Yeah, any things that that you see that you would impart on somebody that's new to the program, either as a mentor or a mentee?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is that you get what you give. In other words, there's no magic recipe to make those relationships successful. You have to put in the work, both as the mentor and as the mentee. That's the best way to really get as much out of it as you want to. So if you are only going to meet, once a month, that's fine. But, just imagine there's not a lot that can happen in half an hour a month or an hour a month. So you get what you put in, find the time to have those conversations with your mentor or your mentee. But most importantly, I think, is to be present. We have so many distractions in our lives, in our professional lives, in our personal lives. And so if you're going to embark on a pathway with a mentor or a mentee, the most important thing I think is really just to be present during those meetings. Commit your full time, your full attention, and fully avoid allowing those distractions creep into those meetings. Turn off your cell phone, close your
Sure.
email, take off your smartwatch.
Mhm.
It makes a big difference. It really
Sure.
does. And if I've also found that, at least for me, what works is having a good mix of both formal and informal agendas. So the formal agendas allow for like intentional learning and leadership, and then the informal, like the open-ended meetings, allowed for the more organic conversations to
Mhm.
happen. And those organic conversations were really important to that relationship building piece of the mentor mentee relationship. So I think having that structure, kind of have some, structured time with some agenda, so that you can make sure you're tackling those issues that your mentee is having, but also make sure that you're leaving time to just have those open, relationship building conversations.
So the AIHA mentorship committee is evolving, right? It's taking on a little bit new form, new name.
Yeah. So it was pretty exciting. I saw it come through my inbox earlier this week, actually, and said that they were changing from the mentoring program to the Mentoring Institute. And so I think I saw that there was going to be a town hall meeting. Well, we missed it. It was today at 11 a.m. Eastern. But I think that they probably are going to record that. So hopefully anybody who missed that town hall will be able to go seek out information through that video recording session. But I think there's going to be more structure around it as what the.
I mean, what is that? What is the difference, on AIHA level between a committee and that going to the institute format?
Yeah, so committee is volunteer run.
Okay.
So you've got the leadership, you've got a president, you've got a chair, co-chair, a vice chair, whatever, to help run those committees. So it's definitely volunteer run, and not to discount the level of effort that comes with volunteer engagement for these types of projects, but it does, when you've got something that can be as significant as the mentoring program, it becomes much more functional at an AIHA level if they can leverage their resources to really build that out and get the word out and put the time and resources behind the volunteers to make that a successful program. So I think a lot of that is going to be coming with AIHA resources moving forward. Fun fact about me is that I'm still an industrial hygiene professional, but through my experience with the mentoring program and through my experience of participating as a mentor and as a mentee, I learned about myself that the mentoring aspect of things is something that I'm hugely passionate about. And so what's pretty cool is I've been able to take that interest and that passion and turn it into a career for myself. And so I'm now the principal of talent at my company, 7Gen. So I don't oversee our industrial hygiene program anymore, which is kind of where I came up through. But I'm now an owner, and also I oversee talent development and for our team. So that's pretty fun. That's kind of a full close the loop kind of moment on this. So yeah.
Sure. That's great. Well, Melissa Rupert, thanks for coming on the show to discuss AIHA's mentoring programs. And this is really great stuff for people to get involved in on either side, right? I mean,
yeah, it's been my pleasure, and absolutely, I think it's a game changer. So if you've got the time, you should definitely get involved with the mentoring program.
Thanks for coming on, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's our show for this week. Until next time, I'm Bob Krell. Stay healthy.